Hello my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Well guys, we have apocalyptic scenes from Mexico Beach, Florida. So Hurricane Michael's made its way through, and as we see, tremendous devastation. You know, it looks like most of the houses were devastated and ripped to shreds when you look at Mexico Beach, Florida. It's tremendous devastation is what we are looking at. So, Tyndall Air Force Base damaged. Think about this too. Think about this. Look at the planes. Look at the fighter jets. Belly up. We have talked about weather wars, and we've talked about this is not necessarily completely natural, you know, and when we look at some of the damage, you know, where the damage has been, you have some major military bases over in the Carolinas, you know, that have been really affected by Florence, and now you have this Air Force base as well that's been very, very affected. And, you know, there's a lot of evidence. We have so many people now scouring the net, you know, putting things together, piecing together all these puzzle pieces, and it's pretty obvious that, you know, I think most of you guys believe that this is not a completely natural thing that we're seeing. So what if this is in some ways weather warfare? You know, this would make sense to hit certain areas and soften them up. And, you know, is it tit for tat with the U.S. and the Chinese, you know, blasting each other? Is this an extension of the trade war going on? Or is this totally, you know, the shadow government, the hidden government, the secret government carrying out Agenda 21 and things along those lines? We've seen the mimic map, you know, the mimic radar. We've seen these pulses that time and time again go out, and just so you guys could, you know, see what I'm talking about. This is mimic, and you know, we see these pulses like right there. You just saw a pulse come out of Antarctica. And, you know, I haven't looked at this today or in actually a little while, but there you see a beam come out of Antarctica. So we've seen these, and there was a pulse that came out basically from Peru and shot straight up to where Michael was before it intensified, and then boom, rapid intensification, rolling on up and smashing on in at an unprecedented level. So we've seen this time and time again, and here you could just see, we actually just saw, if you watch over here, yeah, you see there's energy that goes through and goes right over to the hurricane, which is heading into the Baja area. And you know what? This is moving in a little bit lower than originally thought. And you know, an area that we're going to touch on that's really battling water right now is Texas. Texas has been getting hammered. You know, I talked to some family members from Texas on a daily basis, and they have said that it just has not stopped raining. It's never stopping. You know, it just keeps raining, and you know, you're going to have Rosa coming on in and inundating that area. Chances are, because now what I've seen from this is that it's looking like it's going to go more through Texas as opposed to coming on up and going up more into the Four Corners area. So, you know, as you guys could see, you see a pulse of energy come out over here, and it's hitting Rosa. Now, curious too to wonder what this bigger pulse over here is going to do. Possibly generate another storm, perhaps have an effect over here. I mean, the tropical storm season should be winding down. Leslie has been bizarre, completely bizarre. We've watched this storm just basically go back and forth in circles, you know. almost as if it's in a holding pattern, like it's an airplane that's being told you cannot land yet. You cannot land yet. It's not time yet. So now that Michael has come in and done tremendous devastation to the Panhandle, and Florence has done her devastation to the Carolinas, and we see this one coming in, and it's probably going to add to the water miseries that Texas has been facing. Perhaps Leslie will be sent somewhere, or perhaps, you know, something new will come up. And so, I mean, if we hop over to Tropical Tidbits, you know, and you can see the craziness that is Leslie. You know, they have, some have it circling around, some have it coming straight out. As I was sharing with you about 36 hours ago, it was looking like it was going to come and loop back around and head towards the Carolinas. And who knows what this is going to do? You know, gotta say, I feel like it's being steered. Nadine, you know, lately, the latest looks at it, looking at Ventusky and all, show that it's going to just die out and be a non-issue. Don't hold your breath on that. It's in an area that could end up being a problem for the U.S. mainland. This is traditionally an area where we end up getting something that is basically going to be a problem. It's going to be a cause for concern. And as you see here, you know, it's not the highest, well, it's not the lowest pressure, but you just don't know. And we've seen these blasts of energy come and change things. As we look at what Michael is projected to do right now and shoot on off, and actually still be basically tropical storm winds when it goes into the Atlantic. It's showing pretty good consistency. It's shown good consistency with that all along. And sorry, I think I call it Rosa. You know, that was like previously. We have Sergio this time. And so Sergio right here, you can see coming on in and running a little lower, staying a little bit lower. And as you look at this, you know what, I'm getting that feeling to people to watch out in Texas. And I woke up the other morning feeling concerned about Texas for some reason. Just checked in with a few friends, and you know, just that feeling. Texas is a concern. And so Hurricane Michael, as we know, desperate scenes, just absolute disaster. It looks like a complete disaster zone. It looks like what you would expect if you had bombing runs done, you know, and we're looking at, you know, World War II footage. Bombing runs are done. There's not much standing in certain areas. You know, basically it was just 1 mile an hour away from going to Category 5. Incredible. I can tell you guys right now we're getting rains from it here, and we had some pretty decent winds as well, and a town just a little bit away from us lost power, the complete town pretty much. It is moving on through. It has been fairly intense going on through. We've got friends down in Columbia, South Carolina area. I lived there for years, and they're going through it right now. And it's going to head on through just south of Charlotte over towards Raleigh, and then head on out. At peak, you probably had darn close to 1 million customers without power. Tremendous damage everywhere. Damaged hospitals, damaged military bases. You know, just catastrophic. You had the head of the Cajun Navy basically saying he was terrified and that they cannot go in and work on things because there's so many live wires down right now. It's just too hazardous, and the power needs to be cut off. So it's a total disaster, and we will keep our eyes on it. Here is something, you know, that is really interesting and scary and horrible at the same time. Toxic red tide could sicken people as Hurricane Michael pushes it ashore. So think about this. The red tide too has gone up the East Coast, and it is going up the East Coast, and more people are being affected by this. So many people have been affected by it. It's not something that's getting covered much, but yet I know many people in Florida, and so many people are having breathing problems and are feeling like horrible, and have been going to the doctors, and the doctors have told people that they've seen so many people sickened by the red tide, and now you have that storm surge that, you know, was tremendous, and basically it's going to put more people at risk for the dangerous effects of the red tide. And so this is a real big problem, and we could see what's developing. I know you guys are very with it and very smart, and you're watching all this stuff. And so this is one of our family members, and this is Cartoon Queen. So please go check out her video right here. Show her a little love, some thumbs up, and subscribe if you will. And so this is Miami Beach, and this is from a couple days ago. And look at Miami Beach. So as we're saying, the red tide is on the East Coast, and the red tide is spreading up. It hasn't slowed down. It hasn't stopped. We've had a couple storms, big storms go through. Hasn't changed the fact. You know, there are some that are saying that this isn't going to go away. This is not going away, you know, just period. And so be aware of that, and go check out Cartoon Queen. I have all the links for you guys. Show her some love. You know, she's one of our family members. We have a lot of issues going on, my friends. We have 3 dead in a magnitude 6+ quake in Indonesia, and this was a 6.4 that hit Indonesia, and it was actually followed up by a 7.0 that came after that. So, you know, the quakes are still ongoing. As you see here, Papua New Guinea rocked by a massive magnitude 7 quake. Relatively shallow. And so it was a depth of about 40 kilometers. The epicenter of the quake was located 125 miles southwest of the town of Rabaul, and it struck at about 7 a.m. local time on Thursday. Currently no reports of damage or injuries. And so, you know, this is all still ongoing. And we've been talking, and I'm hearing more people talking about the fact that it simply may not be feasible to live in certain areas. And, you know, we are already seeing tremendous migrations of people as they've been uprooted because of the natural disasters. So let's pop over here. As you see, it's active now. And right over here you have the big 7.0, and there's the 6.2 they're measuring it at was 6.4 before, thanks to the USGS downgrade service. And then over here we have 6.1. So these are all basically aftershocks going on. 5.9, 5.9, 4.8, 4.7. And if we look up here, we see some relatively large ones too. We have a 5.1, and then we have a 6.5 up here in Russia as well, as new ones are popping up. And we see a lot going on the west coast, and a lot up in Alaska, a lot of swarming going on. Caribbean plate as usual. Some in the New Madrid, some fracking quakes. Pretty active out there. One of the things I wanted to call your attention to, because there's just some signs that things are perhaps waking up a little bit, just to keep an eye on. Actually, some of these dropped off since I had looked before. There was 4 here last night when I was looking that were all above, you know, if you're looking above sea level. Negative 1.7 kilometers, negative 2 kilometers. And if we change this out to 7 days, just to show you, I'm so familiar with looking at this area. Negative 1.1, negative 1.6, negative 1.7, negative 2.1, negative 1.8. These are all above sea level. So they are all basically, you know, several thousand feet to maybe as much as 6,000 or 7,000 feet above sea level. and it's where these are, because where these are right on Mauna Loa. So Kilauea has been quiet, and it has gone quiet in the past for as long as 3 months and then started up again. So these, like this is the epicenter of one of those right there, right along the ridge of Mauna Loa. So just something to be aware of, because what we have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6 quakes all right centered on Mauna Loa that are all above sea level. And you know, some of them pretty substantially, like over 2 kilometers, you know, above sea level. So I would definitely keep an eye on that and be aware of that, because it could be indicating possible lava flow under the surface. And that would be something most definitely to watch as we move forward. We see that these things are all cyclical. And we've seen all these changes going on. Now we've gone through a lot of volcanic eruptions for sure. And then we go through cycles of massive earthquakes. And so 2.1 kilometers is basically about 6,900 feet. So just to let you guys know, keep an eye on Hawaii as well. And this is extremely disconcerting, and I know this is going to really tick off a lot of people, and it should. Japan is readying to release highly radioactive water from Fukushima plant into ocean. You know, and it just makes you think, well, what the hell are they thinking? Authorities in Japan are set to release water from Fukushima nuclear power plant into the sea, despite reports the water is still highly radioactive, after many attempts to decontaminate it. Yeah, that's just what we need. Almost 85% of the water is said to contain dangerously high levels of radioactive materials. According to the plant's operator, Tokyo Electric Power Corp., about 161,000 tons of the treated water is 10 to 100 times over the limit for release into the environment. And another 65,000 tons is up to 20,000 times the limit. Does that make any sense to you guys? Does that make any sense at all? And so, as I was saying before, you know, there's a lot of flooding going on in many areas. These are photos going on of flooding in Kansas. A school bus over here was pulled out of high water. No injuries, thankfully. This truck is stuck. As we can see, there's a video for you guys to check out as well. A lot of flooding going on in Kansas and Wichita, and it's not just that area, as we were talking about as well. Texas, we have 4 missing after flooding sweeps away an RV park. Swept away. An RV park is swept away in Texas. And the search has resumed for 4 people missing after it was overrun by raging flood waters. And the river is full of debris, RVs, boats, fences. Normally it's a nice crystal clear river. Right now it's a muddy mess. And they're going to be getting more rain from Sergio. You know, it's going to be coming on through the area, aggravating what has been incessant rains in Texas. And we have Cyclone Titley, and that's hitting eastern India, and it is a deadly storm because we do have at least 8 people dead, and it's destroyed hundreds of homes. And so this has come ashore, and it's got winds of 93 miles an hour. About 300,000 people have been evacuated. Authorities say roads are blocked, power supplies have been lost in many areas. We fear that 6,000 to 7,000 electricity poles may have been uprooted. About 400,000 to 500,000 people are without electricity there. And you know, this is happening all over the globe, as we can see. Heavy rains cause floodings in parts of Scotland. Extensive flooding and landslides have caused problems in parts of Scotland following prolonged heavy rain. And you know, Michael might end up affecting that area as well eventually, as it makes its way on up and out. As we see cars, abandoned and totally flooded over there, submerged, as are those buses. Just an incredible scene over there. The UK has not been spared. No countries are really being spared. That's the point of this all, as we see another abandoned car flooded out. So, lifeboats called out. Again, maybe it's time to go down to Dick's and go get yourself a kayak, a canoe, a lifeboat. While you're at it, get yourself a generator. Doesn't really matter where you are, because at some point in time, we're all going to be affected by this. It's just part of what we have going right now. And so we have over here, severe cyclonic storm Lubin, nearly stationary in the Arabian Sea, and landfall is expected in Yemen. Yemen, with 5 million people on the brink of starvation, is going to be pounded with tremendous catastrophic floods by a storm that's acting like Florence and basically staying stationary. So these poor people that are basically starving to death in this area are now going to get hit with torrential rains and amazing amounts of flooding. And so it's also going to actually intensify further and move east-northeast towards Yemen and the South Oman coast. Not a good situation as well. We had a storm like this hit and we saw tremendous damage by it, tremendous earlier in the year. It's just a scary situation that we have going on globally right now. So we need to prepare to the highest levels. And I know I've said that before, and I'm sorry if I'm being redundant, guys. There's a lot of new things popping up too, and one of the things that's disconcerting is all these diseases, coming up and all sorts. So hunters warned to look out for bovine tuberculosis in wild deer, as we hear the wind stir up even higher here, and causing the acorns to fall off and dance on the roof. So sorry for all the noise there. Hunters warned to look out for bovine tuberculosis in wild deer. Pretty scary looking stuff. Authorities are warning hunters, and this is in Michigan. The Michigan Department of Natural Resources called it an emerging disease. There's a lot of emerging diseases going on right now, and that's pretty scary. And I know there's going to be those of you that say, yes, well, think of the 4 horsemen. Yeah, and things do follow suit. You get natural disasters, and a lot of times, like we're seeing now, we're seeing these tremendous mosquitoes in the coastal areas of the Carolinas right now, which obviously mosquitoes carry a lot of disease. And now we see the red tide, and that's bringing disease and all sorts of respiratory distress to so many people, and that's going to be aggravated. And so the Associated Press reports it's a 73rd cattle herd to be infected with bovine TB. Say what? Did you guys hear about that before? 73rd cattle herd to be infected with bovine TB in the state since 1998. So a lot of these things we don't really hear about so much. And they're scary. And bovine TB primarily affects cattle. However, other animals can be infected. The disease can be transmitted between wildlife populations and animal raised as a food source, farm animals. The Michigan Department of Natural Resources said bovine TB in animals may occur in the lungs, may also occur in intestines and other parts of the body as well. Hunters are urged to get their deer tested even if it looks healthy. When field dressing a deer, here are a few signs of bovine TB to look for. Affected animals may have yellow to tan, pea-sized nodules in the chest cavity or lungs. Lymph nodes of the head and neck can be swollen and necrotic. Lymph nodes in the animal's head usually show infection first. As the disease progresses, lesions may begin to develop on the surface of the lungs and the chest cavity. In severely affected deer, lesions can sometimes be found throughout the entire animal body. Yeah, that's just pretty horrible stuff, and just another thing that's scary. As is the fact that they are saying that Ebola could spread from the Congo into Rwanda and Uganda, as actually cases have doubled in recent times. So that's not a good thing and not a good situation. And as it says right here, you got multiple armed groups in the region. Basically, it's a war zone. Not a good thing, and it's really, not helping authorities, quote unquote, slow down the progress of this. And this is something that's developing. Now, we had a Soyuz rocket with crew that was going to go to the ISS. It malfunctioned minutes after launch, and the capsule returns in the ballistic descent mode. The U.S.-Russian Expedition 57 crew launched towards the International Space Station inside a Soyuz MS-10 rocket from Kazakhstan, and they were forced to make an emergency landing several minutes after launch. According to the reports, it felt like they were already weightlessness, like they were up in space. And shortly after launch, there was an issue with the booster, NASA said in a statement. And the spacecraft separated from the booster. The team was in contact with the NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Russian cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin as the capsule returns in a ballistic descent mode. Search and rescue teams have been deployed to the landing site. The crew was found in good condition and transported away from the area. So, interesting. And so, there's a lot of things going on. There's so many things going on. And so, gotta admit to you guys, I love my LaCroix. And so I was concerned when I first looked at this. LaCroix is being sued over its ingredients. Are they actually bad for you? And this is one of my guilty pleasures, because like if I wanted to crave something that was bubbly, and this is what I would reach for. And so you just never know what you're getting when anything is processed. And no doubt about it, Americans are hooked on LaCroix seltzer. So a lawsuit was filed last week against the drink's parent company, National Beverage Corp., claiming that LaCroix misled its customers by labeling its ingredients as all natural. The internet erupted in utter confusion about, or in defense of, the very chic seltzer water. So the plaintiff is a law firm, Beaumont Costales, and they're claiming that chemical testing revealed that LaCroix includes ingredients that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration considers synthetic, such as limonene, linalool propionate, and linalool, the latter of which is found in a cockroach insecticide, according to a statement by Beaumont Costales. Natural Beverage has denied the allegations and said in a statement that all essences contained in LaCroix are certified by our suppliers to be 100% natural. But when it comes to food labels, what does natural really mean? And there's a little article for you to click on there that we'll discuss too. The label natural is not vigorously defined, said Gavin Sachs, an associate professor at food science at Cornell University who isn't involved in the lawsuit. There's not a regulatory definition of natural. Rather, there's a consumer idea of what natural is or feels like. Indeed, the FDA notes on its website that it has not engaged in rulemaking to establish a formal definition for the term. Then what the hell good use is it, right? I mean, if there's no established definition for it, then, it doesn't really account for anything, does it? So basically what they get to is the fact that these compounds, they are found in natural things, such as linalool is found in fruit, cinnamon, rosewood, and mints. Limonene is found in citrus fruits like oranges and limes. These two compounds, plus the third mentioned in the lawsuit, linalool propionate, are aroma compounds. That means they're somewhat volatile and will escape the product and waft up towards your nose. As we know, taste, and smelling go hand in hand. If you squeeze an orange or grate a lime, for example, it will release limonene. As for linalool propionate, that chemical is found in ginger, lavender, and sage oils, which are all obviously natural beneficial things. In the body, it breaks down in a way similar to linalool. Now, all this isn't to say that at a certain level the compounds wouldn't be toxic. Like with anything, it's the dose that makes the poison. Just like drugs, there's a certain limit up to which certain chemicals can be considered safe, and then after that, perhaps not. So now, while linalool is present in a cockroach insecticide, it doesn't mean it's the active ingredient. And again, we know that, okay, certain natural components will keep bugs at bay. You know, rosemary is one of them. Lavender's another one. So there are some of these things that are very, very natural that could be really good at keeping away insects, you know, insect repellent like. And so we wouldn't necessarily say that lavender, sage, or ginger is something that you should be afraid of. So, you know, basically this is, again, buyer beware, caveat emptor, and just something to be aware of. And this is definitely, I feel, appropriate at this time, and hopefully we're at the point where we already have some way at keeping the power going when the power goes down. And this is happypreppers.com, because we could be prepping and we can be happy while we're prepping. And so, how to choose a generator. And so there's quite a few little things here that are really good that might help you when you're making a decision on, you know, well, I won't even say when it's time to buy a generator, because, you know, it's time to buy a generator if you don't have one. The time to buy a generator is well before you need one. And right now there's about 1 million people basically down in Florida and in Atlanta, Georgia, and the Carolinas. There's probably actually well over 1 million that are in need of or using a generator right now. How to buy a generator for prepping. There's an Amazon link for Amazon's generator buying guide here. Things to know before you buy: what types of generators, how much power do I need, features, accessories, how do I install and operate it, safety tips, severe weather prep, frequently asked questions, and etc., etc. This will help guide you guys through it. This is a must-have now. I think it's a must-have for pretty much everybody. And just to share with you guys the situation here, well water. So it's wonderful. There's no fluoride in it, but at the same time, if the power goes out, there's no water coming up. So you have to be able to, you know, be able to draw up the water from the well. And it's not just that, as we know. I mean, we are sitting on October 11th right now. It's going to be pretty damn cold in a good chunk of the country pretty soon. You know, give it another month or two, and much of the country will be facing life-threatening temperatures. And so without heat, going to be in trouble. And so, you know, we're going to see these storms go on. This is nothing that's just going to blow by. They're going to continue. So we have to be prepared and have backups to our backups and do as best as we can. Obviously, you know, we are all limited by whatever we can afford to do, but just take heed of what we see happening all around us and realize that, you know, it might have happened in Florida yesterday, it's happening today in Georgia, and it happened last week in the Carolinas. You know, things are happening, life-threatening situations, as we saw from today, you know, up in Scotland and in Texas and in Kansas and in India and in Indonesia and all over the world. It doesn't really matter. We've seen these crazy floods in Mallorca, Spain, and Italy. You name it, we have seen it. So wherever you are, we have to prep to a higher degree. You know what? We all need to become preppers. And so this segment of, you know, this video, we're focusing a little bit more on the physical nature of preparation and all. And many other videos that we do are going to be geared more towards the spiritual side of preparation, the emotional and spiritual. But we need to prep in every way. So we all need to be preppers, my friends. It's a prepping world that we live in right now. As always, please do thumbs up to support the channel. Subscribe, join our growing family. Click the bell, make sure you get all the notifications. Share with as many people as possible, because the more prepared people are, the less panic they will be later, and it's just going to make everybody safer. Everybody. I know a lot of you guys have family members that are totally asleep and don't have a clue, and it's time to wake them up. It's time to wake everybody up and get alert, get prepared in every way, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. My friends, may you always be blessed with abundant peace, love, and happiness. God bless, and namaste.